So totaling those together, over $11.6 billion just in the US lost last year between investment and email fraud.
You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Hello, and welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I am Nathan Whittacre, CEO of Stimulus Technologies, and today we're very excited to have a longtime client of ours and guest to talk about AI, technology, security, and everything related to running a small business. So welcome, Kyle. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So Kyle is the partner and co-founder of Cornerstone Wealth Management in Henderson, Nevada. Cornerstone helps individuals and families plan for retirement with focus on protecting and growing assets and helping clients move forward with greater financial confidence. They also have financial planning and tax advisory services. So all of us, want to eventually retire and hopefully retire with financial confidence. So it's a great thing you guys do to help individuals and probably a lot of business owners plan for this in the future. So if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, and we get started.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've had this firm, Cornerstone Wealth Management, now for over 20 years. Even prior to that, I was a solo practitioner. I've got a couple different business partners, and I know you said something about Henderson, but we actually have an office in Henderson and in the Summerlin area. And so we help, high net worth individuals, like you said, business owners, get to and through retirement. We help them tax saving strategies, investment strategies. We have a Medicare arm here. We do some estate planning. So pretty much try to encompass anything in somebody's financial life that they may need up until retirement, then throughout retirement. That's what we focus on.
Great. Well, I think one of the things, and we're going to jump off script here briefly because we were just talking about it before we hit record. I recorded a webinar earlier this week talking about, email threats and cybersecurity, and you brought up something that happened to one of your clients recently. And I think to kick it off, let's talk a little bit about the scary stuff, and then we can get into the more interesting stuff. So tell us what happened this week.
Well, look, I mean, people trust us with their money. They trust us to keep it safe from the market and to grow it for them. Well, they also trust us to make sure nobody gets their money that's unauthorized or that they get hacked. So I got a message from a client through email and text saying, "Hey, Kyle, my account's been hacked. I've got a new account number. I need to send you my new information, right? So that we can send him his money every month." And so even though he texted my personal number and I knew it was him, I just said, "Hey, do you mind? Let's have a quick phone call just so I can triple verify it." And it was true. His account got hacked and the bank had helped him. So I thought that was kind of the end of it. Well, the next day, I get a call from his brokerage firm who said they had stopped a wire transfer almost $19,000 due to suspicious activity. Now, immediately when I heard that, I knew for a fact he did not need an extra $19,000 to be sent to him. This wasn't part of our plan. This wasn't part of the strategy. I have very specific income streams coming to him on a monthly basis. So looking through his account, there was a cell that was actually placed that was an unauthorized cell. And so thankfully, Schwab had stopped it before this wire was going to be sent out. And what's interesting, Nathan, is that we got the client on the phone and the Schwab fraud department goes, "Hey, have you recently opened up a party invitation from a friend?" And the client's thinking, he goes, "Yeah, I got one from a friend and I had called him because I couldn't get it open." And the client saying this, he goes, "When I called him, my friend said, 'Don't open it. It's fraud. It's spam. It's a virus.'" And so the Schwab lady who deals with finances from everybody pulled that out because I guess this is one of the newest scams going around. and knew it was from a party invite. And the virus or something is so malicious that even when he took it to the Geek Squad to clean it, I guess, something didn't get fully done and it stayed on. So here he is thinking he's changed his passwords and this and that, and they're still following him somehow. So just incredibly concerning. And luckily, personally, and our firm, I've never had anyone have unauthorized money come out of it. We take lots of steps. We appreciate our relationship that we have with you guys and the way you secure our emails. And it's a necessary thing that you guys do. And it's important, especially coming from our side of it, protecting our clients from all these different threats.
Yeah, so as you're talking about that, I was pulling up the latest statistics that just came out from the FBI. So I made sure I quoted these numbers correctly. For 2025, reported losses by the FBI, the largest reported loss is investment fraud from a cybercrime perspective,
Yep.
and the total is $8.6 billion last year. If you combine the next highest one, which is business email compromise, which is how you described this, hack came in from this
Yeah.
person, that's another $3 billion in reported losses. So totaling those together, over $11.6 billion just in the US lost last year between investment and email fraud.
Yeah.
And
And it's
those are
insane. I mean,
reported.
yeah, we work with a lot of older clients, right? They're retirees, and the whole internet thing wasn't always around during their life, and it's fairly new. And he was keeping his passwords on his computer, and that's like a big no-no. You've got to use those password managers, right? And so he learned his lesson, and luckily, financially, it other than a pain in the butt, it hasn't cost him financially.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, that's the most positive outcome you can get from this. I mean, we often, in the podcasts and the webinars we do, we focus on businesses and securing the businesses, but we have to think about it in our personal lives too, especially if we have, significant wealth, or even if we don't, actually losing maybe $1,000 for somebody that doesn't have wealth, could be the difference between making a rent payment and not making a rent payment. So,
Yeah. Yep.
doing some simple things like you mentioned, a password manager, making sure you have different passwords for every website, having good antivirus, anti-spam protection on your emails, and just being cautious in our personal lives is essential too, because I think it can be even more damaging on our personal lives even than our business lives, because we often as business owners will insure our assets, whereas individually we may not have the coverage we need to prevent these type of losses
Yeah.
from really affecting us.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree.
well, sobering story to start out the conversation. It's unfortunate, that these hackers will follow the victims and can do a significant amount of harm. So just be
Yeah.
careful out there. It's scary. So, like, to kick things off on the positive note, let's talk a little bit about wealth management and maybe how it's changed over the last few years, especially in light of AI. Have you seen any, major changes in investment management and different things that have occurred in the last few years, especially as AI has come on board, whether it's clients asking for different advice or trying to take things into their own hands? What should we be paying attention to?
I mean, look, we've heard of robo advisors, right? Where these algorithms are supposed to pick the best things for our clients. And it was going to be all financial advisors were going to be unemployed because now the robots can do it faster and quicker. And the reality is, this is a very personal type of business. It may be about their money, but their money is very near and dear to them. So trusting it to an AI driven algorithm, it's really not what people are looking for. Now, I know there may be success stories out there and maybe you've tried it, whatnot, but you just can't replicate the personal experience that you have with a client and to understand their needs, their wants, their desires. What we do, comprehensive wealth management, holistic planning, that can't just be passed off to an AI driven world. You still need to be hands on. So we've embraced technology in our business, Nathan, but only to help us make us better, right? Not to give investment advice in that respect. Did that kind of answer your question?
I think so. I was just listening to another podcast earlier today talking about that particular, it's how do we as business owners ensure that we stay relevant, in this,
Mhm.
whether we're wealth advisors or IT professionals or CPAs or lawyers, how do we stay relevant? And I think it comes down to that personal relationship. We
Yeah,
can use the tools to
right.
enhance that relationship, on our back end, but we still have to cultivate that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about AI. One of the tools we use is a note-taking app. And what's amazing about it is a lot of times I did have somebody else in the meetings with me, and they would help kind of send the recap of that meeting to the client. Well, we now use an AI driven app specifically for the financial planning business that we're in. And by the time the client drives home, I've already got a complete recap of everything we talked about, what our job duties are, what we need to do for the client, our next steps, as well as the client's next steps. And it just is so clear and clean and crisp and outlined that there's no misunderstandings of what the client is looking for and what role we're going to play to help them accomplish it. So that's how we've used AI in our business rather than a robo advisor type relationship. That's not what we're going to do, and that's not what we're ever going to do.
I picked up something that you said that I think is key. You said that the tool that you're using is specific to your industry. You didn't just go out and randomly Google a random tool.
Right.
How did you choose, a tool that, because you're regulated, right? As a financial
Mhm.
advisor, you correct me if I'm wrong, it's FINRA is one of the
Yep.
regulatory authorities.
Yep. And
So
SEC. Yep.
and SEC. So how do you decide what tools and whether it's an AI tool or some other type of line of business software, how do you decide which ones to go with and maintain compliance with your regulators?
Yeah, well, I mean, our industry will already have vetted these before they even come to be purchased by registered reps or broker dealers. And so I know there's certain, reports that we have to make sure are being done. We got to make sure certain personal information isn't getting broadcasted out to the public to make those hacks that we talked about earlier in our show possible, right? We still have to keep that all very private, but we're looking to take the best examples of the AI to make our lives easier and to be more direct and clear for our clients so they know what they own. They know what their investments are meant to do. Our industry, like I said, and I don't know if you're going to tell you the name of the app, but again, it is very specific to financial advisors.
Perfect. I mean, I think that's in general, depending on who's listening, I think when you're choosing applications and choosing tools, especially in regulated industries, you need to be very cautious about ensuring that it's compliant with the regulations. And
Agreed.
I think the scarier thing is making sure your employees are doing the same, because a lot of times, your employees will go out and, hey, I use this personally. It's a great tool. I'm going to start using it in the business. And then you have this rogue IT going on inside your business and can cause you regulatory harm.
Yeah, I mean, with that hack that we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, we sent it out an email to our employees, even not just for their business, but personal. Hey, don't go clicking on some party invite that may or may not be or look real and be, could be a virus. And then I even told my family, like, hey, be careful right now because this is very, very malicious. And then it takes over your email and sends party invites from your email. So it just keeps compounding the problem. So yeah, I agree.
I know you started out the podcast talking about how financial advising is still a very personal relationship. But what kind
Hmm.
of, other technology tools have you found to be really successful? It doesn't have to be AI driven, to help automate things or improve the customer relationship? What have you found in your business over the years that has really been a big game changer in the way that you do things?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there would be two aspects of that. What we, it's amazing because right now, like with all the technology, I have a link that I can just send somebody through text or email. They can click on it, they get on our calendar, it sends them an immediate email with our address, what to bring, the date and time. So I do love the technology that allows us to be more efficient instead of having like when you used to go to the dentist, right? They'd call you the night before. Well, now you're getting a reminder, it's automated. If you don't show up to your dentist, you did that on purpose because you didn't forget, right? Same thing with us, right? I'm not, nobody wants to waste their time. And so I love the ease of which I can get people scheduled and, you know, keep them updated on their financial performance and their investments. The other thing that we use are tools that help us dissect their current holdings and investments, performance. Lots of times I use technology that they've never seen or heard of, or they're not getting from their other advisors. So they really don't know what's really going on in their portfolio. What do they really own? And the technology has just come a long ways, right? Where I can do a couple clicks of the mouse and give them more information than they would get by reading 500 pages in a prospectus that nobody reads, right? And Nathan, I've been doing this almost 30 years. When I started in the business, I was still doing paper applications. I was doing things manual that we would never think of doing anymore. It's been a cool time to see how technology, including AI, has just revolutionized our business and just made us more effective and better so we can help more families.
You mentioned that a lot of the people that you're working with, though, aren't exactly technology experts. They might be older individuals and, might be nervous about, how technology works, or, even booking an appointment with a link might be nervous about that. So how do you kind of balance between, the technology that you're using and the clients that you're serving to ensure that there's still, great customer experience, even if
Yeah.
without the technology getting in the way, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we still have that human component, right? I still have calls that are being made. I still have a, executive assistant and receptionist, and they still get to see our smiling faces when they come into our office or when they come to events. So, again, I know there's a lot of fear about technology replacing a lot of jobs and all that. But again, people don't necessarily just want to go talk to a computer. And so we have a pretty big team here and we have a friendly team. They're designed and taught to make people feel comfortable, right? Because, if I use too much technology, then I am missing that personal element. And that's not what we're trying to accomplish, right? We want to keep the connection. Sometimes you just got to pick up the phone, you got to meet in person, even though we have clients, in other states. It's like we're doing this. I mean, it's easy to see somebody right next to you, right? Or 1,000 miles away. I can see where Nathan, hey, buddy, And so, yeah, that's important. I agree.
Yeah, it's amazing how technology's changed the way that we do business in all aspects. And I think it's sometimes we don't think about where we're at looking in the past. And you think 30 years ago, the way that you described you did things like paper applications and fax
Right.
machines, and like, wow, that actually really wasn't that long ago that, we had landlines and you had to be in person. You weren't able to do,
Wow.
video conferencing. It's kind of like the last less than 10 years that we've, been able to
True.
do FaceTime or Teams or Zoom. And it's just amazing how things have changed. And, businesses that are able to adapt and incorporate those are the ones that's successful to be able to merge that with the personalization. So it's great
Yeah, and
to
like you
hear.
said, our older clients, sometimes they do have a harder time incorporating those technology, but they're getting pretty good. They're getting pretty good. But I think they're more vulnerable to the hacks and to making mistakes because, by the time they retired, this wasn't really around. And so they don't know about the whole password managers thing. Like you reading those stats off, we know there's a certain age demographic that probably is more vulnerable than others. So it's our job to make sure they know what not to do.
So going back to the stats, these were pulled out. These are separate statistics that aren't included in there. Crypto crime, so cryptocurrency crime, added another $11.3 billion to that figure. And AI related crime added another almost $900 million. So these new technology trends like cryptocurrency and AI are causing, pretty significant impact on people's lives. So, talk to me a little bit about cryptocurrency and your thoughts on investments, or is that something that people should be looking at, or how personal thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I know, but you have me walk a tricky subject because I
Yeah.
cannot endorse, condone, or recommend cryptocurrency. Really, it's a very speculative type of investment. So that is going to be more of a core belief if somebody thinks that's going to be a legitimate investment, if it's going to go mainstream, right? The US dollar is going to be converted to that. We can only make decisions we can with the information we have at the time. It is starting to catch a wave, right? Where Fidelity offers it and Blackstone, right, is the largest owner of Bitcoin. And so they did get that an ETF, exchange traded fund approved where people can invest in it. But I would just throw a lot of caution into the wind. And what's the old adage? Don't invest in something you don't understand, right? Or at least be very, very, very cautious. I really wish all these people from these stats that you're telling me would take their powers and use it for good.
For sure.
Maybe we'd be a better society. That's just
Yeah.
insane. Why are we spending so much time and effort to scam people? It's like horrible.
I agree. One of our largest issues that we had with our business, it was 25 years ago, and it happened on Christmas Eve. And I was dealing with, hackers in one of our systems overnight, making VoIP phone calls when it was kind of a big thing to do that. And I
Mm,
made a post on social media. I'm like, I don't understand why these hackers can't take their
yeah.
energy and use it for positive outcomes. But I think we have to be aware in society about these type of issues that we have, and I just brought that up just to show that these new technologies and things that come out have a lot of danger to them also, whether it's AI, cryptocurrency, things like that, and we just have to be aware of it and make better
Yeah.
decisions.
This is kind of I don't know if this kind of leads into this, but like data centers, right? They're so secure now. And, you want to talk about, maybe Bitcoin is something. Data centers are a great investment right now. Listen, infrastructure, those are all great things that we know the future is going to need more of. We do like the data centers.
Yeah, I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and it was supposed to be a fiber conference, but the whole discussion was AI data centers and the demand for that.
Uh,
So definitely a lot of drivers out there. So as we wrap up, if you want to do a pitch for your company and how to get in contact with you, and if to anybody that's interested in wealth management.
Yeah. So again, our name is Cornerstone Wealth Management. We work with high net worth individuals, retirees, pre-retirees. We do a lot of workshops, educational events. We have our own podcast as well. Do yourself a favor and just kind of do your own due diligence and look us up and Google us. We're sure very fortunate that we've helped a lot of families. We have some pretty not just good reviews, but if you actually read them, they're very impactful, and you can tell that a lot of our clients are speaking from the heart because they've worked with us for a long time and they can see the positive impact that we have, right? We're not transactional, we're transformational. And so our job is to make sure we have a positive impact no matter who we work with or no matter who we see. And sometimes I can't help everybody, but it doesn't mean I can't have a positive impact and tell them, hey, you're doing everything right. Keep doing what you're doing. If you're looking for an advisor and you're shopping around, certainly give us a call. We'd be happy to sit down and have a conversation.
Well, thank you, Kyle. We'll include links to your website and how to get in contact with you on our show notes. And I really appreciate you joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for joining Stimulus Tech Talk. And leave a comment or question, and we'd be happy to pass it along to Kyle and his team and talk about it a little bit more. So again, thank you,
Yeah.
Kyle, for joining us today.
Thanks, Nathan.